Jim Bit. You know that old saying that says you never judge a book by its cover? Well, the same is true for gemstones. Turns out that peridot and diamonds actually come from the same place, deep within the earth, in the mantle, where the heat and the pressure is extremely high. In fact, peridot and diamonds also come from outer space. Something to think about the next time you meet somebody that you don't know. Discover the value of your story. Increase. So this award lets me know that
Good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Ça va très bien. Ni hao. Hola. Bienvenue, Wan Ying, Bienvenidos, Bienvenita, Benveniti, Namaste, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Story. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a Gemmological Storyteller. Excuse me. In each and every week, I get the magnificent opportunity to take you on a journey. The places you've probably never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I take the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry, and put them all together into a story. What I've discovered over the years is that many of the same characteristics, many of the same qualities and the attributes and the traits that we attribute to gemstones and we value in gemstones, those same characteristics can be found in people. So what I do here is take those gem stories and use them as a template, as an inception point, as a seed, as a bridge to help people, to empower people, and oftentimes to remind people of the value of their own stories, of who they are, of how they resonate with the light. I want to, first of all, welcome and again say happy birthday to all the people born in August. My sister's one of them, so I got to give a shout out to my sister. Hey, Jamel. And her birthday's tomorrow, but I want to say something today. Hey, Jamel, how are you? Jamel is my youngest sister, my only sister. And she's part of the reason why I still even have any sense of family. She kept me strong through all these years, so thank you so much. I love you. Today is really an important show for me because, as I told you, each week I do the show. It's an evolution. It's an evolving process for me that's been going on for a really long time. And what really got me about today was just really how far I've come. Thank you, Barbara. I remember once upon a time, I didn't believe in metaphysics. I didn't believe in metaphysics. Metaphysics was like for everybody else. Same thing with religion, that's a whole nother story. But metaphysics was just hocus pocus to me. I didn't believe in it. I'm a scientist and I didn't believe in all that hocus pocus stuff. And when people would talk to me about metaphysics, or spiritual things, I used to go, please, it just sounded so gooey, and just everybody sounded like a hippie to me. Just like, oh, what you need to do is take the energy from Jupiter and align that. And I was just like, really? And I didn't believe it. And that's really strange, because my whole life really revolved around metaphysics. Here's something that a lot of people don't know about me. I actually spent time in a Zen Buddhist monastery. And I always give people a few minutes to say, wow, oh, that's so cool. Because I also have to tell you that I got thrown out of a Zen Buddhist monastery. I really did. And I'm from New York. I'm thinking enlightenment on TV. Enlightenment happens within an hour. So I'm like, okay, when do I get to hear the sound of one hand clapping? And I remember my master, and I don't even remember his name. This is how just completely he threw me out. I remember him calling me to his, not office, to that room that he was always in. And he said to me, he was telling me the things that, I was doing, I needed to do, my chores, things of this. And then he said, I think you'll get more out of this once you leave. And I remember, how you're in trouble with somebody and you're just happy that they, like there's an end to them getting on you. So you're like, I'm ready to walk out the door. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. What did you say? He said, you'll get more out of this once you leave. And I remember being so hurt, because I said, oh my God, I'm actually getting thrown out of a spiritual place. Like there's no place for me to go. It's like my mom didn't particularly want me, and now I'm getting thrown out of a monastery. And what I've come to realize is that he was right. He was right. And that's what this show is about today. Just the evolution, the journey that I've had to take, and many of you take in your finding who you are, finding your value, finding what your story is. And it's so funny that this show, everything truly, I understand that everything happens for a reason. Literally each week I am directed by the universe to go in a certain way. So as I was preparing, thinking about what do I want to do with this show, I realized the date. And this is the birth month of one of my heroes, Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte is someone who I just admire. And I'll go into why, because a lot of people don't understand why. He was actually born next week, August 15th, 1769. So next Tuesday is his birthday. He would have been 254 years old. And you should think about that, because here's a man who literally lived 254 years ago, and yet you still feel, if you ever go to France, you feel his energy everywhere. I mean, buildings and bridges and restaurants and streets, Napoleon. And he died May 5th, 1821. He was literally 51 years old when he died. He died of stomach cancer. And I know there's some people watching now, well, he was a dictator. Yeah, Napoleon did not do cool things. There were cool things that he did. He changed the country. France is France because of Napoleon. The Louvre, the Arc de Triomphe. Those are all his creations, his ideas. The food, the wine that you appreciate about France really comes from him bringing that together. There's a lot of things about Napoleon wasn't cool. First of all, he reinstated slavery in Haiti. He did. Joseph Bologna, the Chevalier de Saint George, he literally, when he came into power, he made sure that all his music, all his work, as much as he can get a hold of, first of all, he imprisoned him, and then he destroyed his music. So that's not, and then not to mention, Napoleon had real issues with women. I should do a whole show about, he had lots of other women, but his two wives, Josephine, of course, and Marie Louise. He had issues with women. That's part of his problem. That was part of his downfall. The way he saw women. And we'll talk about that another day. But the thing that I loved about Napoleon was the way he saw stories. See, Napoleon was the first book report I ever had to do in my life. I was 10 years old when I had to do my first book report. And I don't know what drew me to him. I don't know if the teacher asked me, but I remember doing a book report on Napoleon. And first A+ that I ever got, actually A++, because the teacher couldn't believe that I wrote. It was a long, you guys see my Facebook posts, I kind of like writing. So it was a long book report, and she couldn't believe that someone 9-10 years old could do a book report that long. I don't know how many pages, it was like 15 pages, something like that. It wasn't plagiarized, literally stories. And what I love about Napoleon was Napoleon is the quintessential example of the power of stories. Napoleon, he didn't just become an emperor. He saw himself as an emperor from a child. He studied Alexander the Great, Hannibal, Julius Caesar. He studied these people that came before him, and he knew that despite where he came from, despite his life, despite the way he looked and the way people perceived him, he knew he was going to be an emperor, not just a rich man, just an emperor. I had the advantage of the wonderful opportunity, as some of you know who follow my Facebook page or follow my story. I had a wonderful opportunity to go to the birthplace of Napoleon, Ajaccio, Corsica, is where he was born. There it goes, just a little island. Actually, it's the 4th largest island in the Mediterranean. So Ajaccio is right next to France. I live right around here in southwestern France, a little quaint town called Telle, spelled Taller, and here's Ajaccio. And when you look at Napoleon's house, when you go to where this is Ajaccio, actually, I was across the bay, Ajaccio, and me and my wonderful manager, Catherine Sadi. Okay, so this is my view from my window across the bay. That's Ajaccio. That's where Napoleon lived. And it looks just like that. No Photoshop, nothing. That's it. And beautiful. It's a mountainous island. About 3/4 of the island is mountains. And when you go to his place, this is the sunsets are like this every night. Every night. Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful place. And Ajaccio it was an Italian island at first. In fact, it didn't become French until the year before Napoleon was born. So Napoleon, he wasn't French. He was Corsican. And France took that island. It literally just like Russia's trying to do to Ukraine, just took the island, just said, okay, you belong to us. And when you go to his house, Napoleon, where he was born, where he lived and grew up, it's like he was kind of like lower middle class. This is the street, little narrow street that he lived on. This is his house. This is the corner. This is Napoleon Bonaparte's house. He grew up here. He grew up his house. He had about 7, 8 different brothers and sisters. His father died, Charles, when he was young. So his mother had to find a way to survive. And there was a whole, they sold oil. They sold olive oil and different grains and things of this just to survive. So this is his house. Of course, Josephine, that's now a restaurant, but that is Napoleon's house. And Maison Napoleon de Bonaparte, Maison Bonaparte. And of course, he was Italian, so his original name is Bonaparte. Bonaparte. That was his real name. Of course, he changed it to make it French, so Bonaparte. He couldn't speak French. In fact, that was one of the things that messed people up about and didn't like about him, because he didn't speak French. He had a very bad accent, so that's who Napoleon was. Maison de Napoleon. And the thing that I loved about Napoleon more and more each and every day is how he believed. He believed in who he was. It didn't matter who. I mean, he was in jail. He of course, issues with women. The woman that he loved in the beginning, she turned him down. All kinds of things. When he was in military school, he was an average student. He was small. He wasn't short. People always say he was short. He wasn't short. That was just he was attacked by like all the countries in Europe. So those are some of the bad things they said about him, that he was short. He wasn't short. He was like 5'7", which is average for that. But despite everything, he believed. He believed in himself. He understood in his spirit, in his mind, that is who he was. Not just a king, an emperor. He modeled himself after the Roman emperor. So when he wore his crown, that was the crown that he wore, that he crowned himself with, because he knew who he was. That's what I love about Napoleon. Now, do I like all the choices he made? No, not necessarily. And I don't like all the choices I've made. But the short amount of time that he lived, 51 years, this is what he saw in himself. When you go to Ajaccio and see just the different places, I got a chance to go to the monument of Napoleon. And it's this huge courtyard. And you see standing there, it's actually further back. I brought the camera in, and you see the years that he lived from 1769 to 1821. And it's magnificent. Just the granite, because Ajaccio is actually, the whole island is really granite. So they took that stone, that rock, and made it into this monument. It was so cool because you got people playing pétanque. These guys are really, really good. I couldn't even hold a candle to them. They just looked at me, just sit down and watch us. I was like, okay. So they was playing, and the friendly, the camaraderie, the community was just beautiful. And here's Napoleon. And I remember just looking at him, just sitting there, staring at him and saying, this is the man that has been in my life since I was 9, 10 years old. And here I am. Okay. Here I am. Yeah. Just sweet ici. I am here in France, in Ajaccio, Corsica, looking at the emperor of France. And it was just a magnificent experience to finally be here, to be, those of you know who my journey to have come from being homeless 31 years ago now, to being here, to touching his logo, to feeling his energy, to understand this. What I was seeing was the culmination of a life, of an energy, of a spirit, that even though he died he would have been 254 years. He died over 200 years ago, but yet here he is. His energy, his sound, his story still lives. Napoleon, Emperor des France, Emperor of France. And when I left, I went to I was sitting on the beach later on, and I started thinking about how I got here, how I got there in that place. Why was I looking at this ship, sitting there in the Mediterranean, beautiful skies, and which made me think about not only just then, but this week, saying I wanted to do a show that showed people, that talks about what happens when you begin to believe. What happens when you start to believe in the story? Because that's what it is. It's not enough for you to just think it. You got to believe it. You gotta embody it. That's what this book is about. That's what As a Man Thinketh. You see it, don't keep it that far from it. That's what, when that part in it where it says very soon so altered has his mind become. Or even earlier than that, despite all the things he went through, hard pressed by poverty and labor, he believed. He thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. He conceives of, mentally builds up an ideal condition of life. That's what Napoleon did. And when you look at, because I teach history, when you look at the people in history, whether it be Napoleon, whether it be Madame Marie Curie, when you look at Gandhi, when you look at Martin Luther King, you see that there's a pattern. There's a pattern of the people who have created great things in their life. They created those great things in their life because they believed, not just prayed, not just hoped, not just wished. They believed. They believed in their story. Very soon, so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment, is cast aside. And with the growth of opportunity which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. That's what I was thinking about as I was sitting on that beach. The reason why I am here today, the reason why I was there, the reason why I was looking at this man 50 years later, 52 years later, is because of Napoleon. Because I heard his story. I believed in his story, and it taught me over time that the real secret is stories. Telling yourself a story of who do you think you are? Who do you want to be? And as I tell you, each week I discover something that completely fits into what I'm saying. So I'm going to introduce you to the talisman of Napoleon. Napoleon, turns out that his favorite color, not only was he born in August, peridot, his favorite color was green. And what Napoleon did was he created a talisman, a good luck charm, a symbol of who he was. And he designed this. This is the talisman of Napoleon. Literally, it is considered to be priceless. This is a priceless heirloom. First of all, there's very few pieces of jewelry that survived that period of time from about 1800 to 1850. The royal jewelry, very little of it has actually survived. I mean, most is still in museums or the Chateau de Fontainebleau, things of this. But this is one of the pieces. This is the talisman of Napoleon. He designed this himself. As I said, his favorite color was green. And when you understand that nothing happens for reason, nothing happens out of just not. So here I'm talking about peridot. Here we're talking about August. Here is, and peridots were first mined in Egypt. And the reason for I'm saying that is because that's where Napoleon really developed his power, when he was in Egypt. You know, conquering folks, but that's when he was there. And he was so impressed with just the spiritual aspects of Egypt. He embodied that. When you go to his tomb in Les Invalides, you see all the influence of Egypt. In fact, there's an obelisk that sits, if you've gone to France before, right on the oh my God, I can't remember the name of this street right now, but there's an obelisk that he got from Egypt. A lot of the pieces that he got from the Louvre, that are in the Louvre, came from Egypt. So there's a spiritual aspect to who Napoleon was. Yeah, you can see this is actually his size. This is a life-size sculpture of Napoleon. So you say I'm 6'1". He wasn't that short. He was short, but he wasn't that short. You know, you take off the hat. He wasn't that short, but he was short. He designed it. He designed this talisman. It took him 2 years to create this design. And Napoleon, what you have to understand about Napoleon, Napoleon was the ultimate multitasker. Napoleon could write love letters. He wrote love letters to Josephine every day. I mean, in battle, he would be literally dodging cannonball fire and things and lances and all types of things. And he would be writing, "My dearest Josephine, I may not survive this battle today, but I want to let you know that my life has been empowered." Literally, of course he said it in Francais, but my life is empowered because I had a chance to taste you. Literally, this is the things that he wrote to Josephine. Of course, she didn't write him anything back, but that's a whole nother story. It's a quartz sphinx on a silver base with 114 precious gemstones. And he sat down because he was so influenced by Egyptian mythology, Egyptian stories. He literally sat down and took the 114 different precious gemstones, rubies, sapphires, and peridot. Here's the peridot right here. Here's the sapphires, rubies. And he designed it into a code. Literally, and it's not an easy to decipher code. It took years for them to decipher the code of this talisman. It represented everything. It represented the code. It was the Sphinx of Josephine. It was literally Josephine's face on rock crystal. And when you understand the spiritual aspects of rock crystal, quartz, or not just rock crystal, but rock quartz is a purifying stone. Quartz is a balancing stone. Those of you who are into metaphysics, quartz is like one of the master stones. And the secret code that he designed in this piece, and it's not that big, but he painstakingly took the time to design this to represent the love that he had for his wife, his military success, and his political success. He made this before he became emperor, before he crowned himself emperor. In fact, when he was in Egypt, he left early. He kind of left his troops there because he wanted to go back and take advantage of the changes that was happening in France at that time. And it was lost for over 100 years. In fact, he probably lost it during the Battle of Waterloo. For those of you who forgot your ninth grade history, the Battle of Waterloo was the last battle that Napoleon fought. He won. He fought in like 88 battles. He's the greatest general of all time. He fought in 88 battles. He won 85 of them. Waterloo was one of the ones he actually lost. Obviously, that was the last one. But he literally went against the whole world. The whole world. All the other European countries were after him. They called them coalitions. That all of them just said, you know what, we're sick of Napoleon. We're really sick of him. Let's get him. And eventually, because he made a couple bad moves and people didn't do some of the things that he was supposed to do, he lost the Battle of Waterloo. He was exiled. Well, actually, he was exiled. He came back for a minute. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me back up. He lost before. They exiled him. And then he escaped. He came back. They had a whole army waiting for him. And his power, his story, not only was so powerful to him, but so powerful to his troops that when he came back, they had a whole garrison waiting for him, armed with orders, shoot to kill. And when he got off the boat, the way the story goes, he got off the boat and the colonel, the general who was waiting, just said, my emperor, welcome, bienvenue. And he came back. In 100 years, he regained his empire. And then the Battle of Waterloo happened. Then they put him on an island, St. Helena Island, which is like the most remote island in the world. It's like literally 2,500 miles from the coast of Africa. So he's truly in the in the Marine Corps, we call it, let's say Egypt, okay? BF Egypt. Bum F Egypt. That's where he was, literally. That's where they left him. This is the face of the Sphinx. And he loved Napoleon. He loved Josephine so much that he had them carve her face into the Sphinx. Of course, he was there. He went to Egypt. He saw the Sphinx, and he wanted to create something equal to the power of the spiritual, the metaphysical power of the Sphinx. He carved Josephine's face into that Sphinx, and he designed it in such a way because at that time the Mona Lisa was a picture that Napoleon had for a time in his bedroom. So he wanted that same look for Josephine. And when you go through, and I'll do a whole show about the talisman because it's amazing what this man did while he was fighting wars and running the whole empire of France and everything else. And when you see that, when you see what he's done, when you see how it comes, so as I said, the piece is priceless. And they said that they had, as an appraiser, I looked at it and said, okay, you say priceless, what exactly does that mean? So if you wanted to buy this piece, you're talking about at least $150 to $200 million. That's the value. And so I want you to take that energy, take that concept of what Napoleon did, who Napoleon was, and when we come back to the other side, I'm going to show you how that relates to Peridot and how that relates to you. I did not know. Thank you, Barbara. I have the best producer in the world. I did not know that today's National Book Lovers Day. As a nerd, I told you, my mom used to make me read. I had a 12th grade reading level when I was in 6th grade. My mom made me read. So thank you for that. So happy Book Lovers Day. So we talked about Napoleon. I told you his favorite color was green. His favorite gemstone was peridot. So let's talk about that. Peridot. Okay, not peridot, peridot. All right, so you can say peridot if you want to, but it's peridot. All right, it's French. This is what peridot is. And last week we talked about we talked about what peridot is made of. Peridot is made of magnesium, iron, silicate. What makes it's an orthorhombic crystal system, meaning the way that gemstones, the way the crystals come together is orthorhombic. There's 7 different systems. That's one of them. What you need to understand about peridot is not like rubies or sapphires. Rubies or sapphires, as I've told you in previous episodes, are what's called allochromatic, which means that here's your structure, and then you put something in it and gives it a color. Not peridot. Peridot is idiochromatic, meaning that the color of what it is built in. Take a second to think about that. Take a second and think about how that relates to you. How there are skills and gifts and talents that you have that are built in. You know, you talk to somebody and say, "Oh my God, where did you learn how to cook like that?" I just know how to do this. This is what's her name? Simone Biles is competing again, and she hasn't competed in 2 years, and she just got right back and just did what she does. It's built in. She is idiochromatic. It is who she is. So Napoleon understood his gifts, his talents, his story, and he knew that there was no other choice for him to be but an emperor. There is nothing else. Peridot doesn't come in any other color but green, some variation of yellowish or to olive green. Birthstone of August. And the metaphysics of peridot is prosperity, well-being, and wealth. So here's a man. His favorite gemstone is a gemstone that represents prosperity, well-being, and wealth. Peridot is a powerful generator of the frequency of increase. It can be used to manifest the increase of wealth, the increase of health, and increase of joy and emotional well-being. This is what he believed in. When he had peridot in his hand, when he wore that talisman, when he gave that, when he designed that talisman for Josephine, for himself, to remind himself of the power of who he was, he used peridot because he believed. That's what peridot is. And that's what I want you to get out of today's episode. Peridot is just the power of peridot doesn't just automatically come. You don't just hold peridot in your hand and just like you can feel it. You gotta believe. You got to believe. That's the power. That's what As a Man Thinketh is talking about. It's not that, oh God, I hope and pray, God, please help me pay. No, you have to believe in the story. You have to see it. If you bought this gemstone, obviously it's beautiful, it's green and everything, but there are some people who understand that power and they buy it because they know, they purchase it, they wear it. Jewelry is an extension of the belief of gemstones. People believed in the power of gemstones long before jewelry came around. Jewelry was a mankind's need to wear the gemstone, have the gemstone on them all the time. So when you have this gemstone on your neck, on your ears, or your fingers, you understand that is a gemstone of wealth, a gemstone of prosperity. Peridot allows you to gently, think about this. Peridot allows you to gently expand your ability to receive from the universe. Come on. Receive from the universe, accepting your birthright of complete abundance on all levels of life. Now, if I said that, back in the day when I didn't believe in metaphysics, I've been like, whatever. Really? Yeah, okay, that's nice. But because I began to understand that it's the belief that Napoleon demonstrated that. How is a man that's lower middle class, born in not the hood, just kind of like in this reasonable area. His mom's single mom. He grew up mostly with a single mom. His family was in debt. All the things, but he believed in the power of not only just peridot, he believed in his power. He believed in himself. He believed in what he did to your birthright of complete abundance on all levels of life. So think about the power that what kind of person understands that you wake up one morning and you say to yourself, yeah, you know what? I think I can just run all of this. I just imagine, Napoleon talking to Josephine one day and just like, you know what, baby? I think I can run this whole thing. And Josephine says, pourquoi? And he's like, no, baby, for real. I think I can run, what do you mean, the house? No, baby, the world. Think about it. When Madame Marie Curie, when she knew, and women in the 18th, 19th century, come on, not that women are being treated a whole lot better now. But back in the 18th, 19th century, you weren't a woman that did science. That didn't happen. But she believed that she could do something great. Peridot. So it's not what happens when you begin to believe. That's what happened to me. I'm not just a haircut president. I'm a client. That's what happened to me as I was sitting there on this beach, sitting on the birthplace of Napoleon. And I began to realize it was the stories that I read from 10 years old that manifest into me being there at 62 years old. Yeah. That's what happens when you begin to believe in your story. Peridot helps the wearer to reveal the areas where self-worth issues have not allowed on have not I don't know how I read that on to receive have not allowed on to receive in the past. So the things, the self-esteem issues that I had, and I had tons of them. I told you, my mother made me feel like I was a rock. You can fill in the blanks. That's what I felt. That's why I was homeless. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't alcohol. It was the way I saw myself. I didn't value my story. And once I began to understand my story, and more importantly, value my story, that's when everything changed. That's the part when it says the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment is cast aside, and with the growth of opportunity which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. You see how I can just say that quote? That's direct quote from As a Man Thinketh. And the reason why I can say it like breathing is because I would say it again and again and again and again and again. And what happened 2 months ago. I'm sitting on the beach of Ajaccio, Corsica, looking and coming from Napoleon Bonaparte's house, the Emperor of France. And only thing I did, the way I got there, the way you can get there, is doing the same things that he did. He believed. So what happens when you believe? What happens when you begin to believe that story that you told yourself that you can open up a restaurant? What happens when you begin to believe that despite what everybody else have told you in your life, the things that you believed? We're going through a whole lot of mental health issues, things of this, and one of the ways I believe that you can begin to heal yourself is to begin to look at what your story is. Who are you? Who are you? Not what people have told you. Who are you? What are your gifts? What are your talents? Remember my ex-wife? And I always say this because I feel, I wish I could just tell her thank you. Because remember what she said? Oh, you talk so much. Oh my God, you're just a fountain of useless information. She was right. Not the useless information part, but the talking part, yeah. Have that conversation with yourself. What is your story? What do you believe about yourself? This peridot look different than the other peridots, but it's still peridot. The structure of what it is, it's still there. It still maintains what it is. What makes it special? What makes you special? What makes you special? And the beauty of it is that here's the real beauty. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if life has been hard for you for such a long time that you don't even know where to begin. The way you begin is you start to look at yourself. You literally change the chronological aspects of your life just as things that happen, and you start to look at the way a director would a story, the way a writer would a story. Look at your stories. Look at the people, good and bad, as characters in your story. And then the next step is you see yourself as a director. You are beginning to put the facets of your story together. You cut it, you design it. When a lapidary, a gemstone cutter, cuts a diamond, someone has to make a decision on what it should look like. Someone has to make a decision how that color is manifest. This is different. In fact, peridot Peridot is one of the 12 gemstones on the breastplate of the high priest. This is in the Bible. Here's Peridot right here, upper right-hand corner. Peridot, first row. First row. Think about it. What else? The thing that absolutely amazes me, and I thank you guys who support this show, who come every show. Thank you, or could just come. Thank you, because it is. The more you think about it, it is magnificent to understand that gemstones and jewelry and precious metals is really one of the few things on the planet Earth that all of us believe in. All of us believe in, even though you may not. This is a symbol. This is what the Jewish high priest wore. You don't have to be Jewish. You understand that that's gold. You understand carnelian. You understand all the different. You understand peridot. You know it, and you understand the value of that. What else? And I've been thinking about this, and please send me a comment or if you could think of anything else in our world, in your life, that everybody agrees on, whether you have it or not. You don't have to be born in August to appreciate peridot. You don't have to have a ruby to appreciate a ruby. You don't have to like the color blue, but you appreciate the color blue. You don't have to have a sapphire, but you still appreciate what it is. How is that any different than who you are? How is it? And here's the next level. Once you understand that, then you understand that the only reason why those gemstones have the power that they have is because someone, somewhere, somehow created a story about that gemstone. And then, here's the next step. Peridot has been mined for 2,500 years. This peridot was Cleopatra's favorite gemstone. So how is it? In ancient Greece, peridot was considered the symbol of the sun. Now, what's really strange about that? Peridot, as I said in my gem bit, peridot is not just found in the mantle of the earth, in the same level, actually a little higher than the depths of diamonds. But peridot is one of the only gemstones that come from space. Literally, they've had meteorites that fall, and in those meteorites were peridot. So how did people in ancient Greece, who did not have the technology that we have today, they didn't understand that it was magnesium, iron, silicate. They didn't know that. They didn't even understand atoms. But yet, how did they understand that it was the symbol of the sun, one, and two, how did that story, and this is the real part, how did that story last for 3,000 years? How did that story last for 3,000 years where people are still quoting? It's still in books. It's still a part of movies. It's still a part of songs. How did we understand that? How did that story exist? And if that story can exist about something that's made out of 4 elements actually, you're made out of hundreds and thousands of different combinations of elements. What is your story? How have the things that you've experienced in your life, those are the facets. Those are the facets. And what's so beautiful is that you get a chance to put it, you get a chance to design it any way you want to. Any way you want to. You create it. A gemstone is just a rough, it's rough. It has a certain symmetry. It has a certain basic shape. And it's someone who decided, you know what? This is what I want it to look like. And they created. And they created. Why can't you do that? Why can't you do that? When I tell people that I was homeless, I'm not telling people that I was homeless as kind of like, yeah, I was homeless, like you should be homeless too. That's the way. But what I want people to understand, that what you're looking at today, every Wednesday at 9 o'clock, what you're looking at is a man that 30 years ago, I was sleeping in a dumpster. I can tell you exact address of the dumpster. They've changed now. They have modern dumpsters, but that's where I was. I came from an abusive childhood. I did not go to church. I did not have get the homeboy hookup. It's the stories. It's the stories, and people who heard my story, heard my sound, and they saw something. And I am just breathtakingly grateful for all the things that someone saw the gemstone. They saw how I could take those characteristics, that is Barry Mixon, that my ex did not see. She saw some of it. She saw part of it because she wouldn't have married me, but she didn't see the next level. Just like there were people who didn't understand Napoleon. They didn't understand who he was. They didn't understand how this young guy, he was a general by the time he was, what, 26? He was a general. He was an emperor by the time he was 30. He was an emperor of a whole entire, not just a country, of a whole empire at 32 years old. He told the Pope, if you see old pictures of when he crowned himself, he lived in the background as the Pope. The Pope, and you know, back in those days, the Pope was it. He told the Pope, you know what, sit this out. I got this. I'm going to crown myself. And what I'm saying to you here now, what I say to you each and every week on this show, is those are the same techniques that you can use for yourself. This show is the promise that I told you, and I will continue to tell you. This show is the promise that I made to God, that if I ever got out of this, and ladies and gentlemen, I waited for death to happen. I waited for death. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. But if I ever got out of this, that I would spend the rest of my life helping people discover their value. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't even have that kind of relationship with God really at all. I was just like, well, hell, there's nothing else working. Let me try this. And what God gave me, I didn't get the Bible. I got this book that I read over and over and over and over and over again. That's what happened. That's what you can do. You can create your story. That's Peridot. That's Peridot. This is Peridot. This is where some of you are right now. Just a rough, or maybe you feel like this about yourself, and yet you can take this rough and become that. These are all Peridot. The stone of the sun. Peridot was a popular gemstone in the 1800s. Everybody wore Peridot because Peridot represented wealth. Peridot represented power. Peridot gave the wearer the energy of royalty. That's why Napoleon wore it. And he gave it to his wife, because even though she was wrong to him in so many different ways, she literally cheated on him like 2 weeks after they got married, but he loved her all the way to his last dying days. He loved her. Peridot. The story. What happens to you when you begin to believe in your story of who you are? And what gemstones do, gemstones are manifestation of that, gemstones is a much smaller microcosm of who we are as human beings. If those things, you cannot get away from the fact that if those things are happening to a substance that has 1, 2, 3, or 4, or diamonds, just one element, what can you do with all that you are? The story. So your homework assignment this week, and I hope some of you are doing, I hope some of you are just seeing this. Your homework assignment this week is really do an evaluation, do an appraisal on yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil and say to yourself, what are the materials that you have to work with? Are you tall? Are you short? Are you fat? Are you skinny? Can you talk? Can you write? Can you breathe? Can you not breathe? Can you cook? What can you do? What are your characteristics? What's your molecular structure? What are the things? Are you allochromatic, meaning that you had to go to school to learn what you've done and learn these things? Or are you idiochromatic? Are there things that you could just do? Because I don't know how I learned how to braid. I can just braid. Some of you are saying that, obviously not me, but you know what I'm saying. And then see how you can create that into a powerful story, not to tell other people, but to tell yourself over and over and over and over and over again until you begin to believe in your story. So, happy birthday to all of you born in August. Thank you for coming to the show. My name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a Gemmological Storyteller, and it is an honor to sit here today in front of all of you on this beautiful August 9th day and tell you that one of the best things that you can ever do in your life is to discover the value of your own stories. So until next week, au revoir, atatella, voila.
There are over 100 different gemstones that come in the color of green. Diamonds, emeralds, jade, even sapphire. But peridot is the only gemstone that comes in one color, green, from a beautiful yellowish green to the most highly valued olive green. So if you know someone who loves the color green, peridot might be the stone for you. Discover the value of your story.